readers, I'm Amy. Welcome to the video. Sorry for the background noise. I have the washer running. We are in my craft room where I've been trying to spend more time lately and haven't really gotten a chance to spend more time. Why am I doing a bookish video in my craft room? Books aren't in craft rooms. Books are in book rooms, generally called libraries. Well, we are going to count how many books I actually own. And when I say that, I mean I am talking craft books, technology books, sex education books, digital copies, physical copies. We're gonna do it all. So, starting with my book cart that I got thinking that I would put books on it, and I actually just put crafting stuff on it, which is totally fine. I have a fashion book that I've had since childhood. I mean, really, most of these craft books I've actually had since I was like 13, 15-ish. A couple of the like erotic photography books I've had since I was an adult, since I was 20-ish. Yeah, but most of these had been in my library for a very, very long time.
I heard you talking to somebody.
I was talking to my camera. Do you have something to say? I'm showing off my craft books. Do you have something to say? I already fed you. I already fed you, so you can't have anything to say. So at the first counting of my books, I got 20. This is not counting the Peanuts Treasury and the Ultimate Spider-Man book, because those are Chris's. Sometimes I might use them for some art references, but they're not my books, so I'm not going to count them. 20 books in my craft room. All right, next location. We are in the office with my, oh goodness, with one of the only succulents left in this house. Pathetic, I know, I'm aware. So, have my computers and Chris's desk that my computers are on, and some art stuff, and these little super nerdy, these are Chris's little Star Wars pictures that he got, and here are some books, and there are some more books. So what do we have here? Language books. I'm not going to count those. I don't speak any languages. That is all Chris's. The sex education books are mine. I'm not counting National Geographic because it's a magazine. I just have it there because it's on gender. I'm not going to be counting my puzzle and coloring books. Some of these coloring books are Chris's, but they're not really books that I would read or reference, so I'm not going to be counting them. So we have 7 books on this shelf. And then we go over here, you've got Karen Down for What? Which maybe you'll understand if you've watched my font videos. We have some more Star Wars nerdness, and we have some writing books. These 2 books are mine from college, but I've passed them on to Chris because he is a writer, so I'm not going to count those. What I'm going to be counting is SEO for Dummies. So, I have 1 book on this shelf, and that's it. A quick look at one of the shelves in the kitchen. We have a lot of cookbooks. Some of these are my mother-in-law's. Some of these are my mom's, passed on to me, and some of them were mine to start with. I'm not going to count these. We have lots of tiny little seasons, best ones. Some of these I use regularly. Some of these I use like semi-annually. Some of these I don't use at all. I don't know how to count them because I don't know what I should count. So we're just gonna skip the cookbooks. But there's my collection nonetheless. And now, the plants that are actually alive, except for that one. That one's fake. That one's not alive. We have 4 plant books here. 3 of them are my mother-in-law's. How Not to Kill Your Houseplant. That's my book. So, I'm going to count that because I actually read that every couple of weeks. 1 book on this shelf. Cool. Now, of course, we are in the library. Here is my TBR shelf. 2 of these are Chris's books. The rest are mine. We are counting my books, not Chris's. I will be counting these design history books. I haven't looked into them all that much, but I will be once I have less school and more business to take care of. I have some Lucille Ball books and some cat books and some magazines. The magazines I'm not counting. This is a book for reading, but I'm not going to count it because in high school I turned it into an art piece. I have a very old video on damaged books, and I included this one in that, so if you're curious about it, look at that. We got the dystopia shelf. Science fiction, classics, which I'm always trying to make this collection a little smaller because I don't actually read that many classics. We have memoirs, horror. These 2 are series fantasy. That one is standalone fantasy. Then we have nonfiction on sex and feminism. Nonfiction, largely animal-based. I will go ahead and count my butterfly books because I reference them often enough that I count them as books that I do read. We have contemporary and more contemporary. These are more like nonfiction, race and war based, and a little bit history based. Half of these are Chris's, so I'm not going to count all of them. This is a religion book that I'm looking into right now. We've got the Harry Potter collection that I own. There are also 7 books that I passed on to my mom. We've got some young adult books and Stephen King. Stephen King. I am going to count all of the Stephen King books. Most of them are Chris's. They started off as Chris's. I hadn't read or owned any Stephen King before meeting him. So most of this was originally Chris's collection, and then I added to it. And I've read a couple of them. I don't want to read all of them, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to count all of them. And then we've got what's left of my V.C. Andrews collection and some mass paperback horror that's Chris's. I'm of course not counting the teeny tiny books on the teeny tiny shelf because I don't read those. This is a fake book. It's just got some pennies in it. It's one of those cute little gift card books you used to get at Barnes & Noble. You've got the T-Rex, which has a very inappropriate name that I will not be telling you on this channel, and some generally tiny books. Like, you know how some of these mass paperback books and stuff are really tiny and just don't quite match up with the rest of your books because of their size or their condition or something. So my tiny books are kind of on their own shelf. I even have like a teeny tiny copy of an I Love Lucy book. Get that back up there and hopefully it doesn't fall over. And then I have 2 of my oldest books, Jurassic Park and Pride and Prejudice, and my very tiny collection of poetry books. And this blue book is actually a book that my grandparents printed for me as a child that has my name in it as part of the story. So that's kind of cool. This is supposed to be the watercolor picture of books that I read this year, and I just haven't worked on it since like June. It's got some catching up to do. And underneath are some books that I'm reading. So I'm going to find all the books that I've been reading and count those, of course. And then I have to tackle the digital books, which it has been a long day of filming and working, so I'm probably going to count digital books on another day, but it'll all be part of the same video. So catch you in a second your time, maybe a day or 2 my time. Alright, so it's been like a week or 2 since I filmed that last clip. I have been incredibly busy because it's been the week of Black Friday and I currently work in retail. So we are going to take a break from wandering around the house. I'm not really planning on counting my books on my bookshelves today because I've got a lot of other stuff to do, but I wanted to sit down and talk about some books that I've gotten recently, and we will count those ones. So first off, I want to start with my Secret Santa book. I joined the Secret Santa event that Victoria from What Victoria Read puts on every year. So I got to send a book to someone and someone else got to send a book to me. So I got Dark and Deepest Red, which has been on my list for a little while. This is a standalone fantasy book. I believe this is YA, which isn't usually what I would go for, but I remember it sounding really good a while ago whenever I initially put it on my list. And I don't totally remember what it's about. I'm thinking it's like a Red Riding Hood retelling, but let's read the back of it. Two girls, 500 years apart. Summer 1518. A strange sickness sweeps through Strasbourg, France. Women dance in the streets without stopping, some until they fall down dead. I think Bailey Sarian actually talked about this event like a couple weeks ago for her Dark History podcast, so I might actually know some of the background to this. As rumors of witchcraft and demon possession spread, suspicion turns toward Lavinia Blau and her family, and Lavinia may have to do the unimaginable to save herself and everyone she loves. 5 centuries later, a pair of beautiful red shoes seal themselves to Rosella Oliva's feet, making her dance uncontrollably and drawing her toward a boy who knows the dancing fever's history better than anyone. Emile, whose family was blamed for the fever 500 years ago. But there's more to what happened in 1518 than even Emile knows, and discovering the truth may determine whether Rosella survives the red shoes. That's fascinating. It's not completely what I remember it being about, but I would say this is like fantasy adjacent. But I'm very interested in reading this. Thank you so much to my Secret Santa. It looks like there is a note with this. Okay, happy holidays from your Secret Santa. Brianna Fourpaws and a book from Brianna Davis. Thank you, Brianna Davis. I will reach out on social media and thank them as well. I totally just dropped that note. Super excited to read this. This is another one that I want to read probably by Christmas, because I actually have so many books on my shelf that are gifts from other people that I really need to concentrate on. And you know, we're headed right into December at the time that I'm recording this, so it's like, gotta make that final crunch for all of those books that I want to read before the end of the year. Awesome. I'm so excited. I really hope that my Secret Santa gets their book soon, but Amazon was very unclear on exactly when that book would be sent, so hopefully by the time you're seeing this, the person has gotten it. Next up, so that is one book that we were counting for books that I own. And then I have another stack here of books I ordered because my financial management is not going awesomely, but it's not going terribly. I did make another order from Second Sale. Something I want to talk about a bit. I've been trying to curb my spending, at least towards not buying books that I haven't read. All of these books sitting in front of me are books that I have read previously, because when you buy a book, it's like you might like it or you might hate it if you haven't read it before. So I'm trying to be like, if I haven't read the book, get it from the library or borrow it from someone. But if I've read the book and I know that I love it, then I can add it to my collection. Still not perfect, but it is an attempt. My spending is getting slightly better. I'm going to walk through all of the books that I picked up from Second Sale. This whole stack was, like $45, which is not terrible. We have In Order to Live, a North Korean girl's journey to freedom. I read this several years ago and loved it. Not only is it an awesome story of this person escaping from North Korea, but it's also a really excellent translation of it. Read a couple of dicey translations and a couple of really good translations, and this is a nonfiction with an excellent translation. I loved getting to know the author. I think I've watched some videos of her speaking as well. There are some pictures in this book so you can see her family. Then I have The Fairy Rebel. This one is all nostalgia. I grew up reading this book. I believe it's like this actor had messed up her ankle at some point and she ends up like getting married and having a kid. And I don't remember how she related to fairies, but she has what is essentially a fairy type daughter. She's got this little patch of blue hair at the back of her head that her mom's always tying into her ponytail so that people can't see it, and each of those hairs is magical. And the daughter ends up interacting with an evil fairy and a bunch of other fairies, and it's just this little like children's story. But I loved this, and I don't know whatever happened to the copy that I owned, but I wanted to add it onto my shelves. We Have No Exit by Taylor Adams. I am never able to find this in Barnes & Noble, and I've wanted to own a copy ever since I read it. I would love to reread it this year whenever it gets super snowy, because this is like secluded in a gas station murder mystery. To this day, still one of the best murder mysteries that I have ever read. So excellently done. I think Taylor Adams actually just came out with another book, or is soon going to come out with another book, so definitely looking at picking that up. Dear Skin by Robin McKinley. If you've been here for a while, you may remember a couple years ago, I did a series of videos on books about sexual assault that I had read or that I hadn't read and wanted to read. It was like 3 different videos. It was a whole big project, and someone had reached out to me and said, hey, I really want you to read this. It includes incest. It really speaks to me and my experience, and I found comfort in it. And so I read it and I really liked it. I'm not sure on Robin McKinley at this point. I'd gotten like halfway through Sunshine and did not love it. It was just like too much world without enough explanation. But this one was really awesome. It gave me hope to maybe try some of her other books and see if I like them. So adding that to my shelves. Also, any excuse to add standalone fantasy to my shelves, because fantasy is hugely popular, and I read a lot of it as a kid, but I don't really read it much as an adult. Not only because fantasy isn't necessarily my favorite genre, but also because most fantasies are series, and I just don't want to dedicate myself to it that much. So books like this give me an opportunity to explore fantasy worlds without having to dedicate myself to 1,000-page books in a 10-book series. Yes, I am talking about Brandon Sanderson. I want to read his new series, but I will not read it until the whole series is out. Not only am I not going to reread a 1,000-page book every time he comes out with a new one just so I can catch up, but also they're going to change those book covers by the time book 10 comes out, and I am here for the matching book covers. Heart's Invisible Furies. I've been wanting to get the hardcover copy because I love like the bow and arrow design on it, but I'm finally like, you know what, I don't even care anymore. I just want to have a copy. I do already own the audiobook, but I wanted to own the physical book too. This is one of my favorite books. I can't believe I forgot to include it on my list of like, if I could only keep 10 books, which apparently is taking off and is a tag now thanks to Victoria, from what Victoria read. But should have included this book on this list at least as a cheating like extra book honorable mention, which I did at the end. But I adore this book. Irish author, you have this gay man who's struggling to like come out. It talks about what happened before he was born. It talks about his life. It's just so good and heartbreaking and wonderful, and I really want to reread it, just holding on to it. Then I have 2 Mary Roach books, and now I officially own every single Mary Roach book. I actually already own I own these 2 on my Kindle, my like original Kindle, but for some reason I can't hook up Amazon to that email anymore. So wanted some physical books in case anything ever happens to that Kindle. I got a copy of Stiff, which is her nonfiction book on cadavers. Fascinating if you want to know about death and cadavers. And My Planet, which most people have not heard of and have not read. My Planet, Finding Humor in the Oddest Places. This is like a collection of essays that Mary Roach wrote for Reader's Digest. They are hilarious. They're just like essays on her everyday life. I loved this book. Love adding it to my shelves. If you are at all interested in Mary Roach or have loved Mary Roach, please check out that book. Last one, Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore. This is another really awesome murder mystery book that I read a while back. It had a lot of like extra little surprises and stuff. They all made sense to the story, which is really awesome. So it's just another favorite murder mystery of mine. Wanted to include it in my pile of books that I got. So this is my haul from Second Sale. If you want 10% off of $10 or more in used books, I do have a code where I get a kickback. That is FEM10. You can check out more information on that down below. And we have Dark and Deepest Red from Brianna Davis. Again, thank you so much for taking part in Secret Santa and sending this to me. I love it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 books added to my count. I will write that down and continue counting in another video clip. Alright everybody, so I filmed the last clip yesterday, and then Brianna got a hold of me and said that she actually sent me 2 things and the other one was going to arrive the next day. And since it's the next day, I have the next package. And notes flying everywhere. She got me Dial A for Aunties. I love this book. If you don't know how much I love this book, then take a look at my review. I think I have to point off to the left for the little eye thing, but I will link to my review in this. I adored Dial A for Aunties, and the sequel is coming out next year. I'm definitely going to pick it up. I'll probably reread this and then pick it up. It was brilliant. You have this woman and her aunties and her mom, there's a murder and there's a mystery. There's not a murder mystery because you know how the murder happened, but there is a mystery that is not connected to the murder, and they're wedding planners and it's all chaos, and I love it. And if you love chaos, you will love this book. I also wanted to take a minute to explain some things about how I'm going to count. I decided, I can't even remember if I went over all of this in the first clip because it's been like 2 or 3 weeks since I filmed that, but I am going to count all of our Stephen King books. It started off being my husband's collection because he really liked Stephen King, and then we moved in together and I started buying him more Stephen King things, and the collection has just grown, and I'm not going to read all of them, but there are some that I want to read, but I haven't really determined what I do and do not want to read. So for the sake of ease, I'm going to count all of the Stephen King books on the shelf. Books that I will not count are the ones that are not mine and that I won't read of others. So like, I'm not going to count the Stephen Colbert books that Chris has because I don't think I'm going to read those. I'm not going to count the war books that he has because I'm not going to read them. What's going to be tricky is audiobooks. So I have my original Kindle that my mom got me when I started college. For some reason, that email does not work on Amazon anymore, so the books that I have, I can only read on that Kindle. And then there is Chris's like Paperwhite Kindle that has some books on it that I've bought. I'll have to double check and see if the books that I got for that one are also available on my old Kindle, because that email was still working at the time that we... Apologies, my card filled up. I took a little break. I don't remember exactly where it was, but Chris's books, not going to count those that are on my shelf. Audiobooks, not audiobooks. Kindle books. Audiobooks is another thing. Kindle books, I'm going to look at how much crossover there is between my Kindle and the Kindle Paperwhite. So I'll start with those two because I think there's a little bit of crossover, but I'm not entirely sure when my email for Amazon stopped working. And then I'm going to look at what is on the Kindle app on my phone, which is actually hooked up to Chris's account because, again, email doesn't work anymore. Also, we combined our accounts and then my email stopped working. I don't know. But I'll look at the Kindle books that I have on my phone and the audiobooks that I have on my phone. Again, it's going to be ones that I have read or that I intend to read, and that is how I'm going to determine my final count. So I just hopped back on here for another minute to tell you that my camera stopped working and what books I am and am not going to count. But hopefully there will only be one more clip to this where I can give you some of my final statistics and we can finally determine how many books does Amy have. How big is her reading problem? Alright everybody, last clip of the video, I promise. Just to recap, between the human sexuality books, art and technology books, and the plant book, I have a total of 28. For the second sale book haul and the gift exchange, I've got 10 books. For my library, I actually had to count twice because I thought I was forgetting something, and apparently I did because my numbers ended up different. Stephen King books, as far as physical books, I have 58. And then my TBR shelf, which is down here, I have 29, and that is counting something like this. I got it from Joshana. It is a collection of the Inheritance trilogy from N.K. Jemisin. This is 3 different books, but it's bound in one. It counts as one book because it's just easier that way. And not counting the Stephen King physical books. Wait. Did I count those as... I'm second guessing myself again. Did I count my TBR as part of my library, or did I count my library separately? I don't want to do all this again. So we're going to say that I was reasonable and a smart cookie and counted my TBR as 29 books. And the rest of my library, not counting Stephen King, 265 books. But that's like a difference of 25, so I feel like I could be wrong. One moment. Okay. 30 on my TBR, not 29. And 248 for my library. So I did count my TBR as part of my library. Kindle and audiobooks. Kindle books were 44. I didn't count the books that I would have unhauled if they were physical books. I was trying to think of in terms like if I had my physical library, would I actually own these books anymore? And audiobooks, 14. I, of course, have more Kindle and audiobooks than that, but a lot of them were Chris's. As for Stephen King books, there is only one Stephen King book on between the Kindle and the audiobooks that I haven't read that I know I'm going to read. All the other ones I'm not going to read except the ones that I've already read. So a little bit of picking and choosing as to what I count as part of my library, but you get the idea. So I have to redo my math on this now. All right, and all of that, my final count was actually only one number off from my first count. So final redone count where I recounted all of my books during the filming of the clip. I have 449 books that I own as of whatever today's date is, December 6th. Monday, December 6th, I own 449 books. I have not counted any books that I may or may not be getting for Christmas because I don't know if I'm getting them, because that's the point of Christmas, is keeping it a surprise. 449 books. Am I crazy, or am I just your average book nerd? Who's to say? That is going to be it for this video before I drive myself crazy. This will teach me to take like a month to count all of my books. Next time I need to just dedicate a day to it, and I think that'll make the math a little bit easier for me. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.